Hi everyone, this is Lore Keeper Marion, and today I'm going to be making a map to go along with my upcoming Daggerheart campaign. It's a high fantasy on the high seas adventure, so I'm trying to make a map. There's plenty of maps in the Daggerheart book to get you started if you don't want to make your own, but I did make my own map for a character a while back, and I found it so relaxing and engaging that I wanted to do that again. This is a map I made, and I don't have the original. I couldn't find it before I started recording, but this is a map I made. You can see the kind of the outlines of graph paper. And what I did with this one was I got various colors of paint. I got some blues, I got some, I think some greens and some oranges, and I just kind of splattered the paint on the page, and that allowed me to kind of get a randomized sample of where water features would go. There was a bunch of blue kind of in this kind of area, so I was like, okay, there's a larger like outcropping of water here, there was a bunch of blue concentrated here, and then I think there was some, I used orange for kind of high points, and there was a group of high points over here, there were some high points over here and over here, and that also helped me figure out, like, oh, okay, the reason why the water is starting to pool up in this area is because there's some higher elevation areas preventing the water from like flowing nicely, and it's having to narrow down here, which means possibly pooling up over here. And then from there I was like, okay, if the water is there, where will there be communities? And I figured this high point would be a good place for the main city and kind of a castle, and the fields and the farms would kind of be over here, and over here there might be some spooky areas like these strange three peaks. And then I manually, because I had done this on paper as opposed to on the computer, I drew a grid and kind of zoomed in manually and like did a little bit of a zoom in. So we're going to be starting with the bigger picture for this one as well, kind of like how I did with this, but rather than using paint, because I'm going to be doing high fantasy on the high seas, I'm going to be using dice to kind of give me an idea of where the various islands and things are going to be. And I was also looking, like, one thing I like about maps, and the maps in the back of Daggerheart are absolutely gorgeous, and they even give you little ideas of maybe there's a city here. Look at this fascinating bridge on this side of the map here. Like, there's a little island within a ring of islands here. And those are all fascinating, but I do like to have a little bit of scale. This map purposefully does not have scale because Daggerheart does not use scale in the same way D&D does for travel and adventuring and combat and things like that. So there is no grid, there is no scale. From this city to this city could be 5 miles, it could be 1,000 miles for all we know. And that's up to players, that's up to the GM. It's very freeing, but I do like to have a little bit of a sense of scale. And I was looking this morning on how far apart the Hawaiian Islands are and how far apart the Greek islands are, and the distances may be a little bigger than you might imagine. The distances between the Hawaiian Islands tends to be about 100 miles. Same thing with many of the Greek islands. From the main island of Hawaii to Maui is about 90 miles. From Maui to the farthest island of kind of around Maui to Oahu is about 25. From Oahu to Kauai is 100 miles again. So it's just these vast distances, but they're still within visual distance. So if you stand on one side of Maui, you can see the big island of Hawaii off in the distance, but it is a lot further than you might think. So I'm starting with a big page. All of my dice here are going to represent the islands, and I have also purposefully picked different sizes of dice. So the D4s, I figured like the numbers of the dice are going to tell me either how tall the island gets or how populated the island gets. I'll decide that later, but maybe it'll be a combination of both. So I've got a couple of D4s to kind of give me small islands, some D8s to give me some big islands, D6s, D10s, D12s, and D20s. And I also put in some of my itty bitty dice, because if I'm going to roll all of these together, they've got to fit in my little itty bitty hands. Okay. So a few extra teeny tiny dice might be better. Or this might go very poorly. We will see. Oh no. This may not go well. They need to be... I need to try this again. I might need to put some barriers up. Let's see. Or I can roll a couple and a couple. They're gonna all fall off the table if I try this way. Let's see. It's a little better. And where's the one that fell off the floor? Oh well, there's a lost island somewhere. Alright, so we've got a decent smattering. We've got some things off in the far reaches. Some things are a little closer together. So we'll see. How are the values looking? They're all looking a little short. We've got an 8. Got a 7. No double digits on any of these numbers. That's okay. That's why we use dice. And that's why we've got some random numbers. So let's see. We'll pencil in. So there's going to be an island over here. Island over here. I haven't decided on the scale of how far apart these are at the moment. And that's partly because I wasn't sure how they were going to land. And knowing how far apart several, like I said, the Hawaiian islands are spread out by hundreds of miles. Even many of the Greek islands are spread out by... those ones tend to be a little bit closer. But they still, some of the further flung islands were still hundreds of miles from each other. And then the closer ones were about 20 or so miles from each other. So some of these, like we might have a little civilization over here. This might be where, it's so close, they might be sister civilizations or sister communities. And then out here, it might be a little bit more dangerous. Like maybe everybody stays closer to here. So this was a 1. It's a 5, 7, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 4. That's not coming up so well. I'll make sure it's darker in a little bit. 2, 4, 5. 2, 4, 4, 3, 7, 8. That'll be a 4, 4, 7, 1. Okay. So that's what we've got at the moment. I also want to so with some 8s and some 4s, we might also, the other thing I did with these was I really enjoy oh, I don't know the word, or at least I can't remember it. If these are, what's the word? So this is the 8, this is the 7. If that's the case, the level rings, the geology is not my science, but the on maps, especially terrain maps, you'll see like lines, to the contour lines, to kind of give you an impression of where things are high and where things are low. And that's also something I did with these maps. You might be able to see if I can zoom in. Like over here where I said there were 3 spires, I had little contour lines to give you an impression of these are peaks. And the tighter these lines are to each other, the steeper it is. So there were kind of some steep sides off the edges, and then there was this kind of shallow gradation in the middle where it wasn't like there was this, it was still more elevated than some of the rest of the land, but there was kind of this hollow spot in the middle at kind of the midpoint of these three peaks. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go in and put some elevation lines around some of these islands. And since these two were so close together, I'm going to put some, let's see, I'm going to put some of these around. I'm just making kind of happy rough circles around these. One of these needs to be crescent shaped. I love crescent shaped islands, and they do exist, especially in volcanic areas, because that's essentially the crescent shape of the island is because there was once a volcano, and part of the volcano eroded or sank, or the water rose around the volcano, so all that's left is a crescent. And there's some off of the coast of Maui as well, which makes for great coral reefs. Let's see, where will some of these places, I think I'm going to, where did I put them? My ducks. Where'd they go? I had some ducks out earlier, and I put them away because I thought I wouldn't be able to handle them in my hands, which was definitely true. But now I've put them away. The reason I wanted some ducks was to have some things where I could roll them and say, okay, these are hazardous areas. So where are the where are the monsters? Where are the dragons? Where do we have features that the adventurers might encounter some hazards, and what kinds of hazards? Daggerheart does say let your players also provide that during the character creation and session 0, but there's always some that the dungeon master needs to kind of have in their back pocket that even the players may not know about. So let's see, I'll use the dark blue for kind of serious hazards and light blue for less serious hazards. And the values can also be kind of, I don't know if I want them so close to civilization. Let's see. Let's try that again. Because you wouldn't place a civilization right near a whole bunch of hazards, right? Let's see. Maybe a couple. And this one can kind of be in the water there. So there's definitely a hazard here. There's some hazards here. Let's say, and we're gonna fudge it just a little bit because this is map making. Where else? Ooh, what about some benefits? Where are there some hidden benefits? Something right off of the coast there and off the coast there. Maybe some, see what those things are. Okay. So I'm going to mark those with maybe like a little star. So there's something here. There's something here. And then our hazards. What am I going to use for those? Little hashtag, little pound sign. And then kind of, what shall be our middle sign? I'll make it a heart. Daggers and hearts. It's a little deceptive. Maybe like a dagger. There we go. Something out here. So, with that, let's keep drawing some things. This is not a very tall island, so we've got a couple of islands that are kind of just barely above the surface of the water. This one has a little bit of something to it. This to wrap around. And right now this is all just, how do you feel? Like this is definitely the Bob Ross of map making. Like happy little trees, happy little islands. The lines just, they don't need to be perfect, and really they shouldn't be perfect. Maybe this is our, oh, I remember why I was making hazards. Hazards could be the volcanoes and various volcanic regions. So where could there be volcanic regions, and where can we have maybe some volcanic activity that would lead to having these crescent-shaped islands? And I think this one will. So this was a 2. So kind of shallow but it'll have some volcanic activity. And maybe it's not like it was dormant. Maybe if anybody comes up to it, it'll activate. Maybe maybe this is the reason it's a kind of a mid-tier, right? It wasn't the dark blue, it was just a mid light blue. So maybe since it's light blue, it could be a dormant volcano that will activate if somebody goes treasure hunting and then they break the seals that are keeping the volcano dormant. And maybe this town next to it has been this island. Maybe this island has civilization, but they've forgotten about that. They just know, like, oh, don't go near that volcano. We don't want you going near the volcano because you just shouldn't. But they can't really explain why not to go near the volcano. Then we have these two. Actually, I want to keep drawing. So kind of my guideline for myself is the amount of gradations and rings I need is kind of like how many numbers I had. So like this came up to 7 and 8. So I kind of need to squeeze 7 or 8 contour lines around those islands. So that's kind of why I also marked this with a 8 here and a 7 here, right? This has 2, so it's 1, 2. This is also 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because that had the 4 on it. So I'm kind of using those to kind of gauge how many contour lines I need. So this one has a 4, but I wonder if this has 8, how big is it going to get before it gets to a 4? Will it be the big island, essentially? So I'm just gonna... And the size of this, like these little wiggles, it's just however you feel. 6, 5. Some steep sides. Maybe the benefit, that's a boon. I put a star there for a boon. So maybe it's hidden away because it's really steep on that side of the island. And maybe also, like in Hawaii, we went out to see Maui, and so we saw one side of the island, and the waves were terrifyingly big, and it wasn't even big wave season. So maybe over here, and it also happened to be big waves and a really steep cliff. So maybe over here, the reason why this boon hasn't been discovered, or the reason why it's kind of hidden away, is because it's this really steep cliff with a whole bunch of waves. A whole bunch of really big waves. So 7, 6, 5, 4. It's going to be really... And everybody comes on this side of the island because it's shallower and less steep and less treacherous. Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. So it looks like and it looks like this was a 4. So probably also, well, we can make it a little smaller. That was a big D4. So we can shrink this in just a smidgen. So this will be the peak of the 4. 3. I'm going to make that kind of a shallowish island. 2. So we've got kind of a, so if this is going down to 1, I'm assuming that like 1 is where, like that's beach. Everything past 1 is going to be water. So there's going to be a nice little, maybe alcove here. We'll see how we get 3. Let's put 3 and 2. There was a benefit here, some sort of hidden boon over there. It's such a small island, maybe that's like a reclusive wizard who's willing to be helpful but not willing to leave his house. 3, 2, 1. But then why wouldn't people come find him? Because he's so close. Well, maybe they do. He's close enough that people can come find him. He's okay with people coming to find him. But he doesn't like being around people. He's okay with people coming every once in a while. And he's okay with kind of people knowing where he is, but he might also at the same time this little island, make it a little steeper. It's gonna be a little bit treacherous. Because he doesn't want people coming to live with him. So that, and it also, since there's a gap, they actually have to take a boat or swim or whatever it is. I probably wouldn't be swimming if there's a whole bunch of big waves. That's probably going to be a lot of big waves also on this side. But this side, because of the water, or because of the shallow water, maybe shallow water, who knows. Sometimes, like, you can have a shallow beach, but then all of a sudden it drops off very quickly, so who knows how deep this is. Well, that's a different map making question. Right now we're just focusing on the land features. This was a 7, so I have a feeling this is going to also glom on to this one. This one's going to be, well, you can also make it small, a tad bit smaller too. I also haven't decided on what the scale is yet, so I'm constantly reminding myself, yes, that might look close, but I haven't decided yet whether that actually is close or not. I'll figure out the scale later. Still working on that. It's okay to have a couple close islands, but then we've got a couple islands far away, and like these ones at the bottom. There's even one off the map here, right? So these are pretty distant, and they've got a decent amount of water between them. So I'm kind of liking this so far. We've got a decent cluster for a nice little civilization. Let's make a little. So this would be 7, 6, 5.